Hello everybody, welcome to PJ Chapter Book Time. We've been enjoying the book Charlotte's Web by E.B. White, and sorry we missed our story time last night. I had some other things I need to take care of, so sorry about that. Anyway, tonight we're starting with chapter 15, and it's called The Crickets. I don't remember that part of the story. The crickets sang in the grasses. They sang the song of summer's ending, a sad, monotonous song. Summer is over and gone, they sang, over and gone, over and gone. Summer is dying, dying. The crickets felt it was their duty to warn everybody that summertime cannot last forever. Even on the most beautiful days in the whole year, the days when the summer is changing into fall, the crickets spread the rumor of sadness and change. Everybody heard the song of the crickets. Avery and Fern Arable heard it as they walked the dusty road. They knew that school would soon begin again. The young geese heard it and knew they would never be goslings again. Charlotte heard it and knew that she hadn't much time left. Mrs. Zuckerman, at work in the kitchen, heard the crickets, and a sadness came over her too. Oh, another summer gone, she sighed. Lurvy, at work building a crate for Wilbur, heard the song and knew it was time to dig the potatoes. Summer is over and gone, repeated the crickets. How many nights till frost, sang the crickets. Goodbye, summer, goodbye, goodbye. The sheep heard the crickets, and they felt so uneasy they broke a hole in the pasture fence and wandered up into the field across the road. The gander discovered the hole and led his family through, and they walked to the orchard and ate the apples that were lying on the ground. A little maple tree in the swamp heard the cricket song and turned bright red with anxiety. I'm not exactly sure that's how that happens, but Wilbur was now the center of attraction on the farm. Good food and regular hours were showing results. Wilbur was a pig any man would be proud of. One day, more than 100 people came to stand at his yard and admire him. Charlotte had written the word radiant, and Wilbur really looked radiant as he stood in the golden light. Ever since the spider had befriended him, he had done his best to live up to his reputation. When Charlotte's Web said, "Some pig," Wilbur had tried hard to look like some pig. When Charlotte's Web said terrific, Wilbur had tried to look terrific, and now that the Web said radiant, he did everything possible to make himself glow. It's not easy to look radiant, but Wilbur threw himself into it with a will. He would turn his head slightly and blink his long eyelashes, then he would breathe deeply, and when his audience grew bored, he would spring into the air and do a backflip with a half twist. At this, the crowd would yell and cheer. "How's that for a pig?" Mr. Zuckerman would ask, well pleased with himself. "That pig is radiant." Some of Wilbur's friends in the barn worried for fear that all this attention would go to his head and make him stuck up, but it never did. Wilbur was modest, and fame did not spoil him. He still worried some about the future, as he could hardly believe that a mere spider would be able to help save his life. Sometimes at night he would have a bad dream. He would dream that men were coming to get him with knives and guns, but that was only a dream. And in the daytime, Wilbur usually felt happy and confident. How nice. No pig ever had truer friends, and he realized that friendship is one of the most satisfying things in the world, and man, isn't that the truth. Even the song of the crickets didn't make Wilbur too sad. He knew it was almost time for the county fair, and he was looking forward to the trip. If he could distinguish himself at the fair, maybe win some prize money, he was sure Zuckerman would let him live. Charlotte had worries of her own, but she kept quiet about them. One morning, Wilbur asked her about the fair. "You're going with me, aren't you, Charlotte?" he asked. "Well, I don't know," replied Charlotte. The fair comes at a bad time for me. I shall find it inconvenient to leave home for even a few days." "Why?" asked Wilbur. "Oh, I just don't feel like leaving my web. Too much going on around here." "Oh, please come with me," begged Wilbur. "I need you, Charlotte. I can't stand going to the fair without you. You've just got to come." "No," said Charlotte, "I believe I'd better stay home and see if I can't get some work done." "What kind of work?" asked Wilbur. "Egg laying. It's time I made an egg sack and filled it with eggs." "I didn't know you could lay eggs," said Wilbur in astonishment. "Oh, sure," said the spider. "I'm versatile." "What does versatile mean? Full of eggs?" asked Wilbur. "Certainly not," said Charlotte. "Versatile means I can turn with ease from one thing to another. It means I don't have to limit my activities to spinning and trapping and stunts like that." "Why don't you come with me to the fairgrounds and lay your eggs there?" pleaded Wilbur. "It would be a wonderful time." Charlotte gave her web a twitch and moodily watched it sway. "Oh, I'm afraid not," she said. "You don't know the first thing about egg laying." "Wilbur, I can't arrange my family duties to suit the management of the county fair. When I get ready to lay eggs, I have to lay the eggs, fair or no fair. However, I don't want you to worry about it. You might lose weight. We'll leave it this way. I'll come to the fair if I possibly can." "Oh, good," said Wilbur. "I knew you wouldn't forsake me just when I needed you the most." All that day Wilbur stayed inside, taking life easy in the straw. Charlotte rested and ate a grasshopper. She knew that excuse me. Sorry. She couldn't help Wilbur much longer. In a few days she would have to drop everything and build the beautiful little sack that would hold her eggs. Chapter 16, Off to the Fair. The night before the county fair, everybody went to bed early. Fern and Avery were in bed by 8. Avery lay dreaming that the Ferris wheel had stopped and that he was in the top car. Fern lay dreaming that she was getting sick in the swings. Lurvy was in bed by 8:30. He lay dreaming that he was throwing baseballs at a cloth cat and winning a genuine Navajo blanket. Mr. and Mrs. Zuckerman were in bed by 9. Mrs. Zuckerman lay dreaming about a deep freeze unit. Mr. Zuckerman lay dreaming about Wilbur. He dreamt that Wilbur had grown until he was 116 feet long and 92 feet high, and that he had won all the prizes at the fair and was covered with blue ribbons and even had a blue ribbon tied to the end of his tail. Down in the barn cellar, the animals too went to sleep early, all except Charlotte. Tomorrow would be fair day, and every creature planned to get up early to see Wilbur off on his great adventure. When morning came, everybody got up at daylight. The day was hot. Up the road at the Arable's house, Fern lugged a pail of hot water to her room and took a sponge bath. Then she put on her prettiest dress because she knew she would see boys at the fair. Mrs. Arable scrubbed the back of Avery's neck and wet his hair and parted it and brushed it down till it stuck to the top of his head. All but about 6 hairs that stood up straight. Avery put on clean underwear, clean blue jeans, and a clean shirt. Mr. Arable dressed, ate breakfast, and then went out and polished his truck. He had offered to drive everybody to the fair, including Wilbur. Bright and early, Lurvy put clean straw in Wilbur's crate and lifted it into the pig pen. The crate was green, and in gold letters it said, "Zuckerman's Famous Pig." Charlotte had her web looking fine for the occasion. Wilbur ate his breakfast slowly. He tried to look radiant without getting food in his ears. That can be a challenge sometimes, can't it? Excuse me one second. In the kitchen, Mrs. Zuckerman suddenly made an announcement. "Homer," she said to her husband, "I'm going to give that pig a buttermilk bath." "A what?" said Mr. Zuckerman. "A buttermilk bath. My grandmother used to bathe her pig with buttermilk when it got dirty. I just remembered." "Wilbur's not dirty," said Mr. Zuckerman proudly. "Oh, he's filthy behind the ears," said Mrs. Zuckerman. "Every time Lurvy slops him, the food runs down around his ears. Then it dries. He also has a smudge on one side where he lays in the manure." "He lays in clean straw," corrected Mr. Zuckerman. "Well, he's dirty and he's going to have a bath." Mr. Zuckerman sat down weakly and ate a donut. His wife went to the woodshed. When she returned, she wore rubber boots and an old raincoat and carried a bucket of buttermilk and a small wooden paddle. "Oh, Edith, you're crazy," mumbled Zuckerman. But she paid no attention to him. Together they walked to the pig pen. Mrs. Zuckerman wasted no time. She climbed in with Wilbur and went to work. Dipping her paddle in the buttermilk, she rubbed him all over. The geese gathered around to see the fun, and so did the sheep and the lambs. Even Templeton poked his head out cautiously to watch Wilbur get a buttermilk bath. Charlotte got so interested, she lowered herself on a drag line so she could see better. Wilbur stood still and closed his eyes. He could feel the buttermilk trickling down his sides. He opened his mouth and some of the buttermilk ran in. It was delicious. He felt radiant and happy. When Mrs. Zuckerman got through and rubbed him dry, he was the cleanest, prettiest pig you ever saw. Would you like to see a picture? There he is. Let's see if I can get it so you can see it. Getting his buttermilk bath. Looks kind of happy about the whole thing. Reading makes my throat dry. He was pure white, pink around the ears and snout, and smooth as silk. Excuse me. The Zuckermans went up to change into their best clothes. Lurvy went to shave and put on his plaid shirt and his purple necktie. This is quite an outfit. The animals were left to themselves in the barn. The 7 goslings paraded around and around their mother. "Please, please take us to the fair," begged the gosling. Then all 7 began teasing to go. "Please, please, 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 please." They made quite a racket. "The children," snapped the goose, "were staying quietly, idly at home. Only Wilbur is going to the fair." Just then Charlotte interrupted. "I shall go too," she said softly. "I've decided to go with Wilbur. He may need me. We can't tell what may happen at the fairgrounds. Somebody's got to go along who knows how to write. And I think Templeton better come too. I might need somebody to run errands and do general work." "I'm staying right here," grumbled the rat. "I haven't the slightest interest in fairs." "That's because you've never seen one," remarked the old sheep. "A fair is a rat's paradise. Everybody spills food at the fair. A rat can creep around late at night and have a feast. In the horse barn, you'll find oats that the trotters and pacers have spilled. In the trampled grass of the infield, you'll find old discarded lunch boxes containing the foul remains of peanut butter sandwiches, hard-boiled eggs, cracker crumbs, bits of donuts, and particles of cheese. In the hard-packed earth of the midway, after the glaring lights are done, the people have gone home to bed, you will find a veritable treasure of popcorn fragments, frozen custard dribblings, candied apples abandoned by tired children, sugar fluff crystals, salted almonds, popsicles, partially gnawed ice cream cones, and the wooden sticks of lollipops. Everywhere is loot for a rat, in tents, in booths, in haylofts. Why, a fair has enough disgusting leftover food to satisfy a whole army of rats." By now, Templeton's eyes were blazing. "Is this true?" he asked. "Is this appetizing yarn of yours true?" Oh, I like high living, and what you say tempts me. Oh, it is true, said the old sheep. Go to the fair, Templeton. You'll find that the conditions at a fair will surpass your wildest dreams. Buckets of sour mash sticking to them, tin cans containing particles of tuna fish, greasy paper bags stuffed with rotten. Oh, that's enough, cried Templeton. Don't tell me any more. I'm going. Oh, good, said Charlotte, winking at the old sheep. Now then, there's no time to be lost. Wilbur will soon be put into his crate. Templeton and I must get in the crate right now and hide ourselves. The rat didn't waste a minute. He scampered over to the crate, crawled in between the slats, and pulled straw in up over him so that he was hidden from sight. All right, said Charlotte, I'm next. She sailed into the air, let out a drag line, and dropped gently to the ground. When she climbed the side of the crate and then she climbed the side of the crate and hid herself inside a knothole in the top board. The old sheep nodded. What a cargo, she said. The sign that ought to say Zuckerman's famous pig and 2 stowaways. Look out, the people are coming, shouted the gander. Cheese it, cheese it, cheese it. The big truck with Mr. Arable at the wheel backed slowly down toward the back barnyard. Lurvy and Mr. Zuckerman walked alongside. Fern and Avery were standing in the body of the truck, hanging on to the sideboards. Listen to me, whispered the old sheep to Wilbur. When they open the crate and try to put you in, struggle. Don't go in without a tussle. Pigs always resist when they're being loaded. If I struggle, I'll get dirty, said Wilbur. Never mind that. Do as I say. Struggle. If you were to walk into the crate without resisting, Zuckerman might think you were bewitched. He'd be scared to go to the fair. Templeton poked his head up through the straw. Struggle if you must, he said, but kindly remember that I'm hiding down here in the crate, and I don't want to be stepped on or kicked in the face or pummeled or crushed in any way, or squashed or buffeted about or bruised or battered or scarred or biffed. Just watch what you're doing, Mr. Radiant, when they get shoving you in. Oh, be quiet, Templeton, said the sheep. Pull in your head. They're coming. Look radiant, Wilbur. Lay low, Charlotte. Talk it up, geese. The truck backed slowly to the pig pen and stopped. Mr. Arable cut the motor, got out, and walked around the rear and lowered the tailgate. The geese cheered. Mrs. Arable got out of the truck. Fern and Avery jumped to the ground, and Mrs. Zuckerman came walking down from the house. Everybody lined up at the fence and stood for a moment admiring Wilbur and the beautiful green crate. Nobody realized that the crate already contained a rat and a spider. That's some pig, said Mrs. Arable. Ah, he's terrific, said Lurvy. He's very radiant, said Fern, remembering the day that he was born. Well, said Mrs. Zuckerman, he's clean anyway. The buttermilk certainly helped. Mr. Arable studied Wilbur carefully. Oh, yes, he is a wonderful pig, he said. It's hard to believe that he was the runt of the litter. You'll get some extra good ham and bacon, Homer, when it comes time to kill that pig. Oh, Wilbur heard those words, and his heart almost stopped. I think I'm going to faint, he whispered to the old sheep who was watching. Kneel down, whispered the old sheep. Let the blood rush to your head. So Wilbur sank to his knees. All radiance gone, his eyes closed. Look, screamed Fern, he's fading away. Hey, watch me, yelled Avery, crawling on all fours into the crate. I'm a pig, I'm a pig. Avery's foot touched Templeton under the straw. Oh, what a mess, thought the rat. What a fantastic creature boys are. How did I let myself in for this? The geese saw Avery in the crate and cheered. Avery, you get out of that crate this instant, commanded his mother. What do you think you are? I'm a pig, cried Avery, tossing handfuls of straw into the air. Oink, oink, oink. The truck is rolling away, Papa. The truck, with no one at the wheel, had started to roll downhill. Mr. Arable dashed to the driver's seat and pulled on the emergency brake. The truck stopped. The geese cheered. Charlotte crouched and made herself as small as possible in the knothole so Avery wouldn't see her. Excuse me. Come out, come out at once, cried Mrs. Arable. Avery crawled out of the crate on his hands and knees, making faces at Wilbur. And then Wilbur fainted away. The pig has passed out, said Mrs. Zuckerman. Throw water on him. Throw buttermilk, suggested Avery. And the geese cheered. Oh, what would they do without those geese? Lurvy ran for a pail of water, and Fern climbed into the pen and knelt by Wilbur's side. Oh, it's sunstroke, said Zuckerman. The heat is too much for him. Maybe he's dead, said Avery. Come out of that pig pen immediately, cried Mrs. Arable. Avery obeyed his mother and climbed into the back of the truck so he could see better. Lurvy returned with cold water and dashed it on Wilbur. Throw some on me, cried Avery. I'm hot too. Oh, keep quiet, hollered Fern. Keep quiet. Her eyes were brimming with tears. Wilbur, feeling the cold water, came to. He rose slowly to his feet while the geese cheered. He's up, said Mr. Arable. I guess there's nothing wrong with him. I'm hungry, said Avery. I want a candied apple. Wilbur's all right, said Fern. We can start. I want to take a ride in the Ferris wheel. Mr. Zuckerman and Mr. Arable and Lurvy grabbed the pig and pushed him head first toward the crate. Wilbur began to struggle. The harder the men pushed, the harder he held back. Avery jumped down and joined the men. Wilbur kicked and thrashed and grunted. Nothing wrong with this pig, said Mr. Zuckerman cheerfully, pressing his knee against Wilbur's behind. All together now. Boys, shove. With a final heave, they jammed him into the crate. The geese cheered. Lurvy nailed some boards across the end so Wilbur wouldn't back out. Then, using all their strength, the men picked up the crate and heaved it aboard the truck. They didn't know that under the straw was a rat, and inside a knothole was a big gray spider. They only saw the pig. Everybody in, called Mr. Arable. He started the motor. The ladies climbed in beside him, and Mr. Zuckerman and Lurvy and Fern and Avery rode in the back, hanging onto the sideboards. That's what people used to do. They would ride in the back of trucks like that. Certainly isn't safe, and we know that today. No one can do that. The truck began to move ahead. The geese cheered, and the children answered their cheer, and away went everybody to the fair. So, that's the end of that chapter. So when we get together next week, we're going to start with chapter 17, and it's called Uncle. Wonder who the uncle is. So have a wonderful weekend, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the stories, and have a very good night. I'll see you next time.